Hello and welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for August of 2023. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
And I'm Julia Mijas, and I'm in San Francisco, California.
Let's take a look at what's happening this month for you. Happy birthday, Virgo. If you haven't scheduled your yearly birthday reading yet, there's still time to do it before your birthday, which is the most powerful time to do it. This lets you ritualize your personal New Year's moment and jump into your year empowered to make it the best one ever. It also comes with fantastic affirmations you can use all year to create your best life. You'll find a link for it in the description below. Well, Juno, which I'm a real fan of, starts the month in Cancer in your 11th house. And Juno loves to be in the 11th house. She's quite the social creature. She is a matchmaker, a connector of people with each other. She likes to manage people in groups and teams, and she likes to kind of oversee the proceedings as a hostess or event planner. And here she is in your house of community and groups and tribe and people of like mind. So this is a really great transit for your social life. She was already here from last month, and so she is going to change houses halfway through the month, but I do want to say just a little bit more about her in this house before I do that, because I think it's such a great transit. You might want to take advantage of it. While Juno is here, do some hosting, do some community work, do some planning in groups, get people together and strengthen their social ties with each other. And because Juno, as the networker, just loves to be in this house, and she's just so deft at this kind of social engagement. Definitely something to take advantage of. And then on the 15th, we see Juno moving on into the 12th house. And so things are going to get a little introverted at this point of the month. The 12th house is a very introverted place. It's a place of imagination and dreams, not so much of realities. It's a house of fantasy, and it's a house of escape, and it's a house of spirit. So, and wherever Juno goes, we want to consider inviting our partner along, whether that's a personal partner, such as a spouse, or whether that's a business partner. And so this could be a really good time for some form of retreat and contemplation together. Some form of, departing from the world and communing together in a more spiritual way. That can be a really great use of this transit. Now, another thing to consider is that you might feel that this is almost even a little bit like Juno retrograde, in that if you are married, that you just want to sort of take a step back from your marriage for a little while here, maybe not more than like a month or two, and just contemplate it a little bit and feel into it and think into it from a little bit of a remove. And this can be a really good time for that. And I'm not telling you to have a separation if that's not what you want to do, but what I'm saying is this can be a really good time for taking a little bit of space that could be very nourishing and could leave you rejuvenated to come back to your marriage refreshed. So the next thing I want to talk about is Uranus, and here he is traveling along through your 9th house. Uranus is quite a one for experimentation, likes to think the thoughts that are new and different, that come from outside the box. And here he is traveling along through the house of philosophy and worldview. This is the house of your Weltanschauung, as they say in German, your perspective on the world that frames your understanding of your experience, that helps you to comprehend life and to see it through a big picture and understand it better and find meaning in it. So Uranus is up for some interesting experimentation in this realm and would like you to have some bigger thoughts, some higher thoughts, some deeper thoughts, and some thoughts certainly that come outside the box in this realm. Now, Uranus is going to be traveling through this house for about 7 years. As you can see in this view, he's already been there for some time. And so this isn't necessarily the most like dramatic of moments in that 7-year period, but I do want to let you know that Uranus is going retrograde on the 28th. And there it is, the little red RX symbol that means Uranus is retrograde. And so this is signaling this year's Uranus retrograde period, which will be several months long, and during which you might find yourself thinking very differently about something that maybe you thought you already understood. And so this can be a time of really introducing new and different thoughts and making even quite a few thought experiments as well. Then I want to talk about Ceres, and she is traveling along through Libra right here in your second house. She loves to be in the second house. This is a very familiar turf for Ceres, being the house that she rules. She's going to be in this house until mid-September. And while here, she really wants you to be comfortable in your own skin. She really wants you to be paying attention to the balance of how you eat and how you live in your body, and to have, really good rhythms and routines for how you take care of your body that can have it be in a state of balance, whether that's your digestion or your physical ability to balance, like your vestibular system, or what form it might take. This series is absolutely out for balance. And then the other thing I want to say is that this is a house of money and finances, and Ceres wants you to get that balanced too. And so this is about a 2-month transit. She's going to be here until mid-September, which gives you plenty of time to work some great stuff out. Hey, Julia, what's up with Venus, Mercury, and Mars for the Virgos of the world?
Well, big news, Virgo, because we're going to have another Mercury retrograde by the end of the month. I'm mentioning this to you because Mercury is your ruling planet. So Mercury retrograde times can really, really affect you personally. Unless you were actually born with Mercury already retrograde in your chart, then they might be times where you really hit your stride. But for you, when we look at this particular Mercury retrograde, the planet that rules your mind, communication, analysis begins the month in your first house. This, again, is a very personal house for you with a very personal ruling planet. The first house represents yourself. It's your physical body. It's how you come off to other people. And since you're a Virgo, you come off as being articulate, intellectual, analytical too. Now, as Mercury starts slowing down in the sky and goes retrograde on the 23rd, this might be a time where you're reviewing how you personally come off to other people. Now, with Mercury retrograde in the first house, even though you might be very articulate, you may also feel like you have to review how you've communicated a lot to other people. Like there could be a lot of miscommunications coming up in your life towards the end of the month, and just reviewing who you are in relationship to other people in general, as well as how you, like I said earlier, how you come off to other people. Are there things about your self-image that you really need to review right now? Maybe you're getting feedback from other people about it, and maybe it's a time to review that feedback. Now, another planet that starts the month retrograde is Venus, the love planet. She represents art, beauty, and relationships, so everyone likes to hear about her. And she begins retrograde in your 12th house. Now, the 12th house, super ethereal place. It represents dream states, hallucinations, mysticism, also compassion too. It's a house that doesn't like boundaries, and compassion means not feeling boundaries between yourself and other people. So with Venus in the 12th, while retrograde, this is a time where you might be reviewing how you've been of service in your relationships. Well, you might also be reviewing your boundaries or lack thereof, which is a very 12th housey thing, especially in your romantic relationships too. Venus, whenever a planet is retrograde, like I mentioned, it's a time of review. So if you're in a relationship, you might be reviewing how you and your partner connect on more spiritual levels, on more mystical levels. Is your relationship only concerned with mundane things like taking care of the kids and making enough money to pay rent? Or are there other types of things which are much more transcendent that you wish that you could bring into your relationship? And if you're single, then these could be things that you are taking inventory of now to think about your next relationship too. Now, on August 13th, Venus is going to exactly conjoin the sun while retrograde. And we call this relationship Clarity Day because, you might have some aha moments about all of this reviewing that you've been doing, especially like how I've mentioned, through the lens of service, through connecting on an ethereal and even mystical level. And so mid-month, I'd say really kind of keep track of the ideas that might be popping up to you, some of the revelations that you might be having around there, because they might really become a lot clearer to you in the midst of all of this retrograde season that we're in. Finally, the planet Mars, planet of action and activity, starts the month in your first house, where he is for most of the month. With Mars in the first, it tends to be a very energetic time for people because remember, the first house is the house of self. So you're really putting out a lot of Mars energy this month. Now, with Mercury retrograde also going on in your first house, be careful of not becoming overly assertive and then misunderstood with what you've said. Having both of these planets in there, especially with Mercury retrograde. But Mars in the first house, yes, sometimes it can be overly assertive. Sometimes you can have kind of come off as having a bit of a chip on your shoulder with Mars in the first house. Other people might want to knock you down a few pegs and you'll be willing to kind of rear up against them. But Mars in the first is an excellent time for physical activity. In fact, I'd say try to find a way to be physically active every day so you can really get out some of that Mars energy and actually do something really, really good for your body too. Then by August 27th, Mars enters your second house. This is a house of finance and values. And so by the end of the month, you could feel very, very driven to get a little bit more money in your life. Maybe there's some personal items you want to sell. Maybe you want to offer some new things in your business that can help make you a little money, or try to work harder, do more overtime so you can increase your paycheck in some way. But since the second house is also the house of values, whether they be religious or political or personal values, this can also be a time of running into flare-ups and frustrations with other people over the values that you care most deeply about, Virgo.
Yep.
Hi, Jamie here. Horoscopes and moon videos are fun, but they're also really general. Did you know we run live workshops monthly and that you can get questions answered about your own chart there? This month's topic is how to get passion and commitment in one blissful package. In this workshop, you'll discover your two different types, for love and for marriage, and how to resolve them in a single, passionate, and committed relationship. If you haven't found lifelong love yet, you might want to consider attending this. This workshop is expressly for our Tier 2 Patreon subscribers. It's easy to sign up at the Patreon link in the description below. I'd love to see you there. Now let's get back to the video.
Well, we have 3 moons to talk about, as well as a seasonal change. Beginning with a full moon in Aquarius, which lands right here in your 6th house. Now, this one faces, moon in Aquarius faces off against sun in Leo. We're calling this one Big Egos Disrupt Group Nourishment. And it wouldn't be surprising at all to find under this moon that there is a group situation and one personality who just really wants to stand out and suck out all the air from the room. Now, in your case, because this moon is landing in the 6th house, which is the domain of work, it's like the workplace for you, this may be where emotions are running high in your life. That might mean that you're part of a group who's noticed that, oh, look at that person over there. Oh my God, why do they have to just suck all the air out of the room? Or it might be that you're that person who is just very needy. So one thing to watch out for under this moon is, how do you manage needs in the workplace, whether those are yours or somebody else's? And then mid-month, we come to the second moon, which is on the 16th. And it's a new moon in Leo, landing right here in your 12th house. And this is also to show that there's just a lot of activity in your 12th house in the beginning of the month, as you begin the month already in your annual mop-up period. This moon, we're calling it mending rifts, not making them. And there's a lot of potential disruption in this moon, because sitting here at 23 degrees of Leo, it squares Uranus precisely. And Uranus, you know, can be something of a disruptor, something of a change maker, something of a rebellious reactionary. And but yet this sun and moon landing in your 12th house might show that your experience of this moon is more internal and less outwardly visible to anybody who might see you. It's probably going to just go on inside your own heart and mind, not necessarily involving anybody else, but maybe involving some of your own internal conflicts that are more philosophical in nature. Because remember what I said about that Uranus in your 9th house. There's some new ideas going on in your mind about these big picture thoughts. So I don't think that this one really needs to be much of a problem. I think it's going to be mostly internal. And then the third moon of the month is a full moon in Pisces, which comes up right at the end of the month on August 30th. And this one lands in your 7th house. It's another full moon. The second full moon inside of a given month is called a blue moon. And that's not anything that's really like useful for astrological interpretation. It doesn't mean anything astrologically, but it is, you know, kind of fun and interesting. So this is a month in which we have 2 full moons. This moon in Pisces lands in your 7th house. And you've probably heard me say many times that a full moon can be a time when emotions run high, emotions are strong. This one could bring you into direct conflict with a partner who is trying to, who is maybe needing you, maybe too much or maybe inappropriately or codependently. And because we're calling this moon pressure to establish boundaries, it's a really great occasion for figuring out, how do I hold a boundary with my partner and be strong and not let myself get drained, while also being compassionate and warm and nurturing. You know, how much of that do I do and when do I stop? And how do I keep it balanced in a good way? So this is a really good moon for that kind of a life lesson. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the seasonal shift. Early in the month, we have got a concentration of planets in your 12th house, right here in Leo. Let me see if I can get Juno over in there so you can see what I mean. There we go. So a lot of stuff in your 12th house early in the month, which really has you in a state of retreat and contemplation and feeling like you maybe want to separate yourself from the world and go inside yourself, which is a really great way to spend the time before your birthday, your new birthday year begins. If you are a sun sign Virgo, and even if you're a rising sign Virgo, this is a really good time for a little withdrawal and retreat in a good way, you know, a healthy way. And as the month goes on, and most particularly as the sun shifts on over into your 1st house, there is a new emphasis later in the month in your 1st house, which means it's time to shine. It's time to be seen. It's time to express yourself and let other people pay attention to you. Let yourself be noticed. Virgo, this is a sign that's notorious for being humble, right? And unassuming, and not really wanting the big fanfare, not really being comfortable holding a lot of attention. But, every good act has its moment when praise is absolutely appropriate. And it may be that you've got some of that coming due. So while the sun is passing along through your first house, which lasts about 30 days, starting on August 23rd, this is the best season all year for letting yourself receive the attention and the accolades that you righteously deserve for all the good things you do in the whole rest of the year.
Well, that's all for today. If you love Pandora Astrology's free and informative horoscopes, please do hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share our horoscopes with your friends.
You can find out so much more about how this month's transits affect you in very personal timing in our monthly Patreon workshops. Find the link in the description below to get started. Enjoy your summer, and until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos.
Bye-bye.